One.
Mic check.
Yep.
Testing, 1, 2. Oh yeah, we good. That's too much of me. We'll go with it. Peace, 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 people. How y'all doing today? Like good? Thank you so much for making it out on this muggy afternoon. It's definitely worth the trip, so we appreciate y'all being here. So I just want to say thank you all for joining us for today's program on behalf of the Newark Public Library, the beat, the scene, the sound. As always, before every program, I'd like to start off by acknowledging the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Munsee Lenape First Nations on which we are learning, laboring, and organizing today. We also recognize the devastation and continued legacy of the transatlantic slave trade, which contributed to present-day systemic racism and oppression. We also equally recognize the resistance that keeps us moving forward through it all. So for anyone joining us for the first time today, the James Brown African American Room was named in honor of the late James Library Brown, an influential librarian, poet, and activist who was instrumental in making sure the library sought out and maintained resources examining and celebrating the African American experience. His vision was also reflected through an array of rich programs to which we add another today. So it's my honor to introduce our guests on the right. So y'all can be done with me because this is who we're here to celebrate today. These good people. Up first, my man, Mr. DJ Disciple. DJ Disciple. Yes. Brother Disciple is an ARIA Music Award winning, Grammy-nominated artist, DJ, radio host, producer, and community advocate, amongst other things. He has toured the world over during his 40-year career, playing venues such as the legendary Studio 54 in New York, the legendary Ministry of Sound in London, and a place I'm sure many of you are familiar with, the legendary Zanzibar right here in Newark. Oh yeah, yes. He is also a writer who's rightfully heralded first book, The Beat, the Scene, the Sound, a DJ's journey through the rise, fall, and rebirth of house music in New York City, has been called thrilling and tumultuous, sprawling debut of autobiographical journalism, and an exciting trip down memory lane. The Beat, the Scene, the Sound is a behind-the-scenes account of how DJs, promoters, fans, and others transformed house music from a DIY project into an international sensation. It delves into the glitzy clubs, underground parties, and diverse communities who made up the scene amidst the tumult of the 1980s, 1990s era NYC, between the fall of disco and the rise of EDM. So please give it up one more time for brother DJ Disciple. And I have to announce where everybody's from. So of course, the old adage goes, Brooklyn is in the house. So yeah, we got to show love to Brooklyn, BK. Brother Disciple is joined by Henry Kronk. Henry. Yeah. Henry is a freelance journalist who has covered a range of subjects over the course of his career. His nonfiction work has appeared in Exclaim, the Burlington Free Press, International DJ, Vallum, Contemporary Poetry, and more. He's also the co-author of The Beat, the Scene, the Sound. In 2018, he produced the investigative radio program and podcast Code Burst, so go back and look that up, check it out. Burlington, Vermont is also in the house. So my man. And last but not least, Jamara Wakefield is an arts and culture writer and creator who resides here in Newark. As a digital content producer at WBGO, the best station in the world, she oversees social media, supports webcasts and other online events, and produces podcasts. She also hosts the excellent Black House, Black Joy podcast, which I highly recommend. Yes.
Woo! Yes.
For those who have not peeped it yet, Black House, Black Joy invites listeners to immerse themselves in the rich history and evolution of the New Jersey house music community. As if there wasn't enough on her plate already, she is also the director of a documentary film of the same name. You can find out about both on blackhouseBlackJoy.com. Y'all have gotten more than enough of me, so please give one more round to these good folks. And all right, so yeah, if y'all just wanna, then we good. Sound is going. I guess actually I'll just start with the first question here and just let y'all pick it up from there. I guess I have a lot of questions, but let's just start with what led you to house? What led you to this music? I know as fans. So.
I was come from a family of musicians. My father played with Miles Davis. My older brother Stanley Banks plays the bass for George Benson, 10-time Grammy Award winner. My other brother Larry Banks worked for the Black Rock Coalition. He wrote for Mary J. Blige, and he wrote for Jeff Red's album. He was an Uptown Records writer and bass player. He got me into playing, my mother got me into playing drums, but my brother Larry got me into gospel music, and I became a gospel drummer, playing at the Greater Refuge Temple. And he kind of inspired me, along with others, to pursue playing drums. By the time I got to college radio, I met Ralph Davis after writing for the Ticker, because I was writing gospel music on newspaper letters. And I started getting to pursuing to see if I can do gospel radio. And I came up with the name DJ Disciple as a reminder that only what you do for Christ shall last. And so I was doing gospel music initially, but my man DJ Jazz also came to the station, and he was the one that introduced me to house music. And I fell in love with it as soon as I heard it. One of the things I loved about it, was that it was morally neutral. Music can be used for good or evil. And collectively, house music has been far more for good and for healing than anything else. And so that's how I got into DJing.
Okay. I had a very different introduction to house music while we sort out these difficulties. One of the very first songs I ever heard, I remember hearing on the radio, was Gypsy Woman by Crystal Waters. I was born in the 90s, came of age in the 2000s. And when I was a teenager growing up, some of the big acts that were playing, that my friends were into, et cetera, were EDM artists. And so, you know, that's maybe a more of a surface interaction with dance and house culture. But I had no idea that those two musical traditions were essentially the same musical tradition. And I had no idea that the journey that house music had taken from its origins in the US, across to the UK and Europe, around the world, and back to the US again. And it wasn't until I met DJ Disciple on my right here that I figured I was able to make those connections and just figure out how deep the history and culture of house music goes. And when that happened, I was a goner. You know, I was completely lost in house music at that point. So that's my journey.
Oh my goodness. So house music. So I grew up, I don't have any stories of like families being musicians or anything like that. I grew up in a house of partiers, of people who like to party. No, for real. That's the real story. We had a club in our basement. And so that was from probably the mid 70s all the way to the 90s, which of course is that crossover time from disco to house and anything that was top 40 in terms of, you know, Black music coming to the mainstream. And so we had a nightclub, and we were very small, and we used to be there because that's how we made money. You know, my family, they worked at, you know, different factories and kind of working class jobs during the day and ran these nightclubs. And so we would just be in the basement dancing with everybody else all night long. And so for me, when I think of house and dance, it's so connected to family and so connected to love. And it's so connected to all the things that like make me, you know, which I think is like a natural draw to house music, because house music feels like a family. Right? I mean, you can speak to that too, but you hang around long enough and you realize that's your family, like those folks you're dancing with, you know? So yeah, that was my journey into the house, literally just down to the basement in my house, in my house. Yeah. So, Disciple, you brought us all here today, which I think also speaks to the power of house music, right? It really does bring folks together and keep people together for years, right? The people you dance with and the people you hang with. So, like, you've come a long way from Farragut houses, right? Can you talk to us about like those pivotal moments that led you to house growing up?
Well, I can say when I was born into the music because I came from a hyper musical family. I lived in the same building as Grandmaster Flowers, one of the first influential mobile DJs in New York City. Across the street from me lived Strafe, the man that made Set It Off, one of the most important post-disco records in New York City. In his building was Kenny Carpenter, who also DJ'd at Studio 54 and Bonds International. On top of that, on that same building was a man named Rusty Taylor. Rusty Taylor is a bass player that worked closely with Shannon, the artist that made Let the Music Play, who also sang with my brother. My brother worked with Hilda Richbone, and they used to sing with and do backgrounds for Luther Vandross. So we were closely tied to everything that was post-disco for that sound and scene and in reverence of that. So my brother would take me to different studios to see how production was made, because he was an in-house studio working with Toni Morrison and not Toni Morrison, the Funkin' for Jamaica singer Tony Smith. So coming up in that era, I was very aware of that kind of musical trends that were going on. The fall of disco kind of meant that people with R&B started coming more into the mold. And you know, my neighborhood was rich with leaders like Jim Smith, who did free breakfasts for kids. I came in communities like Dr. White Community Center, where singers in the church like Tanya Wynn brought out songs from Do It Properly from two Dominicans, a Puerto Rican and a Black man, as well as Mijan, when I first joined the choir, Mijan Owens, who now sings with Groove Junkie, that just recently went #1 on Track Source. When I was playing drums for the Greater Refuge Temple, Octavia Lambertise was the singer that sang It's Gonna Be a Lonely Day. So all of these connections with house music and my gospel roots and the post-disco was all intertwined into one thing that, you know, I've learned to appreciate now in reflection, knowing the history that you know, the person I fell in love with, which was Fingers Incorporated and Robert Owens. Robert Owens sung with James Cleveland. And, you know, when I think about Jamie Principle and Baby Wants to Ride, Jamie Principle also played the drums for his church. A lot of our musicians, like your Barbara Tuckers, the Alternates, all of these people had different spiritual backgrounds, which I also gravitated towards. But in my community, it was rich with great musicians and DJs like Shadi and Charlie Victor, names that you've never heard of. I think that the importance of this book is because we're telling stories of people that have now passed on. They are no longer with us, or some are still struggling. But it is noteworthy that it is of dear importance that our communities, within our community, and specifically speaking the house community, that it is important that Naeem Johnson is talked about in this book, that DJ Camacho is talked about in this book. You know, so many, like Hippie Torales, all of these DJs are some of our founding fathers, but their importance and their footsteps are valued in our community. It is noted and noteworthy for us to talk and speak their name as long as their legacy has been here, and has some of them, their legacy is continuing.
Yeah. And it's especially important. I'm not sure if you're aware that June is Black Music Month or African American Music Month, right? And so, like, you just said so many things that are critical. One, telling our own stories, right? And it also representing the fact that we're still here. There's so many people who are still here, who were with you back in the day, right? Who were with Naeem, who were with Deuce Martinez is in the house. Like, this room actually is filled with living legends, right? We could actually turn any row into its own panel, and you could tell your own stories about house music, right? So there's that piece. And then also like holding space for the folks who aren't here, because we also know that we also lost a lot of people in the 70s and 80s, right? AIDS and HIV, different things that were going through the community. So like totally, and we're so happy to honor you today.
Well, as much as any honor has been given, I wanted to make sure that the book gives as much flowers to the people that have contributed to the scene, because that's what the book is really about. We're not just focusing on just a DJ's journey,
Yes.
but we're taking our singers with us. We're taking our dancers with us.
Yes.
We're taking our people, our community up with us, our promoters, and we're telling a story that is inclusive. With different communities. It doesn't matter if you come from the LGBTQ community, if you come from another religious community. The book itself, The Beat, the Scene, and Sound, talks about a lot of different beats, a lot of different scenes, a lot of different sounds. Some people may not know what the bottle service scene was about, and they need to get some sort of insight. Some people, they might have a misunderstanding about what the EDM scene is. But this book can give you a blueprint of the maturation of house, of working in certain scenes that became festival worthy or tech worthy. And to see the maturation of how we get to the traditional soulful house, to the house music that you can relate to today, that is played from like Sabine or Jahar Muhammad, Omar Abdullah, Amir Brooks, who's also named in the book, because this is also part of our community. I'm never one to really frown down on other musical movements and genres. We all should just try to see if we can learn from them. And I'm humble to just sit down. When I came out here to DJ in New Jersey, I had to learn some hard truths. And it's okay to fail at something, but you don't have to stay down. You could just sit down, listen, and learn. So I was happy to sit down, listen, and learn from the DJs that came before me, so that I could become a better DJ. The book is not about being a superstar DJ. It showcases what we did in detail to contribute to this house music that we have, and to value it with the people that we don't see in the libraries, that see a reflection of us represented in the music that we've made, that we've danced to, and what we promoted.
Yeah, 100%. One thing I'll just add, I'm coming to this from a storytelling and journalism point of view, and it strikes me that house music from its outset was never designed as a big commercial enterprise that was going to sell a lot of records. And I think that maybe contributed to the fact that today many people might hear about folks talking about house music or dance music and kind of write it off. They've never had that incredible dance floor experience. They've never been pulled into the scene. But that doesn't mean that this isn't a genuine American musical tradition, and it deserves to be remembered and treated as one. So I think that's very much our project in putting this book together.
Absolutely. Y'all can clap for that. Awesome. So I would love to definitely hear more about your creative process in terms of how you kept that energy alive on the page, because I'm not gonna lie, it's a little weird to be talking about house music and not dancing to house music, right? Because like all of like, right, I'm like, should we stand up? Should we like do a two-step, right? Because if you know and love it, right, you want to move a little bit, right? You want a little beat behind you. So I would love to hear how you took that energy and brought it to the page. And I just want to add that one of the things I love about house music in terms of its ability to sustain itself as a community is the ecosystem where everyone plays a role and everyone is important. So the promoters are important, the dancers are important, the folks selling firecrackers are important, right? The DJs are important, the people organizing are important, the people who sell the t-shirts are important, right? It's like all these folks come together to create this experience, right? And everyone matters, and you can tell if there's a part of that ecosystem is missing. So talk to us about the book and how you kept that energy alive on the page, like, so moving from the dance floor, from the history, from the DJ booth to the page.
So, okay, one of the aspects that needs to be explored a little bit more is being able to have the platform to work for WNYE 91.5 FM, where I joined that mix show radio show back in 1998. When I came into house music, I loved Chicago house, but I also loved the acid house movement with Baby Ford and Coochie Coochie. I loved Richie Rich with Salsa House. I loved Recent Santonio with Rock to the Beat, or Longsy D from This Is Ska. There were hip house movements as well. Some people from Jersey might be familiar with KYs that did Stomp. Those records also showed the maturation of different levels of house music where we were at in the early 90s. From that point on, we used the radio show to put a mandate to not only play the music, but talk about the music, do interviews with the artists like Frankie Knuckles, like Chime, like so many artists that have paid through the radio station. And we knew at this time that Black radios had stopped playing radio and stopped playlisting it. So it was even more of a mandate to bring awareness to what this music was. I took that documentation of just doing radio and I wrote for Street Sound magazine, because what wound up happening was record labels like Strictly Rhythm Records, they started giving me promos. I started going to at least 5 to 6 labels a day. New Groove, Strictly Rhythm, Cutting. I would go to these record labels to really get involved and engaged about who the artist was, to value, and then become part of record store culture. And when you step into a record store, you value that vinyl because it didn't matter if it had a name behind it. How did it sound to you? How did you connect? And then other DJs would collaborate with each other and say, hey, I like the same records you like. And we would feel each other. I'd say, hey, this is great. That's how I was able to become mates with Roger Sanchez. Roger Sanchez was just selling tapes. And I was playing tapes on the radio, doing it with a pitch control, mixing music on the radio to excite audiences about what was coming in house music during that time. And I had a love affair with New Jersey in particular because there were so many Jersey artists. Abigail Adams from Movin Records was such an important piece to our history. A-Speak as well. So it was important to fire the flannel flames of those movements. That also helped elevate this book. The radio station was so popular that they sold tapes in the UK of my radio show, which is why I was able to get a booking agent that brought me over to the UK. They started having me on Kiss FM because of the radio show, and it created a bigger flat platform. But it was really about showcasing those artists. And my mother input into me and imparted into me, no, we want women to spin as well. So we had Donna Edwards as our first DJ on the radio. It was important for women to play a prominent role, not just as secretaries, but recognizing them as people that moved in the figurehead of being responsible for the DJs to actually break the records. I'm gonna stop now.
No, listen, I'm never gonna, listen, okay, look, I'm gonna give that some love. Listen, I'm not gonna ever interrupt a man who wants to praise women for making it happen behind the scenes. I'm never gonna stop you on that one. Okay, so look, carry on. No, but can you talk to us about your experience in the UK? And then I wanna talk about vocals since you brought up women, because women play such an instrumental role in house music vocals, but talk to us about the UK and how that experience changed your life.
So over here in the United States, as Black radio stopped playing house music so much, radio over there and completely embraced music. So I can go to a Selfridges or a supermarket and I can hear my Blaze song, or I can hear, you know, New Jersey artists on Susu Bobi and whoever on the radio. And that made a big difference culturally. The DJs, there was two separate parts of England. The South really started the iteration of UK garage. The North cultivated anthems, club culture anthems, where people would come every week, experience their same songs that they loved from New York and British artists, and then make anthems out of it. First, the anthems came out on cassette tape. So if I did a set at the Empire, or I did a set at Queen, they would have the cassette tape of it. But then Ministry of Sound came in, and they started making to CDs. After Ministry came Cream. So being part of that is also explaining how they were able to cultivate UK anthems. When I first came over to the UK, there was a Black woman that nobody will ever talk about, but is in our book. Her name is Evil Olive. Evil Olive is an important DJ that played at Feel Real in London. There were other DJs as well, such as Paul Trouble Anderson. Paul Trouble Anderson, as well as Bobby and Steve, helped break New York records that were forgotten about here and kind of kept house music alive with their movements. Before there was a Garage City, where I first started playing at, there was a High on Hope with Norman Jay and Ricky Morrison, going way back to the early 80s when it was Boogie. But when we talk about me coming to the UK, the first club I played at was the Lakota in Bristol with my friend Deli G. I played there, I played at Feel Real, Garage City, and I ended up with Ministry of Sound. And I played the first time in one room, and Tony Humphries played in another. And, you know, Tony Humphries and I recently saw him like a month ago, and we gave each other the biggest hug because we came from the same era of good music and bad music before they were genres. We can just appreciate what good music it was and what bad music was. We understand that there's a business model to call house music, techno, ska music, UK garage, all these different genres. We understand that music is, house music in particular, is a language, you know,
Right.
Spoken and understood by all. But with that language, if you're not speaking it to the right audience, we also understand that not everybody understands house music, that it is a spiritual thing, that it is a soul thing, that it's a body thing. And we kind of, as dancers, and DJs, we have the relationship with each other. And some days I come in and I'm playing for a crowd and my dancer is my enforcer. They come in and they are my support system.
Yep.
If they don't know, if the record ain't hip and the crowd don't know it, it's okay, because that dancer is going to enforce, along with her friends that are feeling it, they're going to make that energy resonate through the whole room. And so what does that give me back? That gives me the inclination to take more chances, break more new music, help out. These kind of things are the examples showcased in what your question was.
Listen, you said a lot, so go on and give that some love. I love that you walked us through your because DJing is both a science and an art, right? And really a technology experience. But I love that you walked us through, how you approach the music, how you approach the whole set, and like how you're hoping to engage with people. I think that's dope. I was going to ask a question not about genre, but can we talk about the role of gospel in house music?
Yes, of course.
Because gospel plays a really important role, especially in soulful house, especially for Black communities, and like, again, vocals, right? So do you have thoughts on how gospel intersects with?
Well, I mean, the gospel was also in disco, if you know about the New York Community Choir, if you knew about, Tremaine Hawkins performing at the Paradise Garage, if you know about gospel and so many other artists that I can name, when I think of Intense, and I think of CeCe Rogers, and I think of Joe Smooth, all of these vocal artists that sing both inspirational music and gospel music. I think that what's important to note is that people that come from different communities, they might not have gone to church, but they heard the gospel in the song that wasn't in the church that they got from the club. And there was a lot of people, because I talk about DJing from the crack era, the HIV era, and the broken windows policy. So why is that so important? Is because the people that recovered from that, and I remember playing that black box and knowing that it was a place for recovery where you didn't need the drugs to get you high. You got high on the music. The music is the place where you went, where other fellows met and danced, and you don't have to be worried about people, places, and things, and you can have your freedom. You didn't need to go to a bar to have a drink, to socialize, but you could be connected to the music based on what the DJ's playing. And that cassette tape or that mix, that'll take you during the week, and you might have a problem, but instead of going to the cigarette, you're gonna go to the house music to help heal you, to help you feel something that you need for yourself for that day. It was so helpful. So gospel music, it was not regulated to the church. The gospel is also, inspirational music is why I found myself in like a soundtrack like Queer Folk, or a soundtrack that's from somewhere else, because the music and the lyrics that we're saying is morally neutral and it touches people. And you might come from a different place where you struggling with something. But as DJs, we speak to you and we tell you, you know what? Things wasn't great for you today. Tomorrow's another day. We are glad that you are here. House music is like a sanctuary. If you miss one of your friends in the club, you're like, yo, where's such and such? You love that fellowship, that brotherhood. There's always gonna be things that we can speak of in other lights, but positively speaking and collectively speaking, this is how our scene can grow and has grown. This is how our culture is magnified around the world. And we understand that, and we love house music just for that.
Absolutely.
It's fusion friendly.
Yeah, it's fusion friendly. I love that. That's cute. That's cute. Can I tell a quick story?
Yes.
Can I tell a quick story? Before I started the film that I'm working on, I had just come to New Jersey, and one of the first parties I went to, someone invited me, DJ Rock Anthony was like, come to this thing, da, da, da. So I was like, okay, let's go. And we went, and the party was completely dry. So no alcohol. And it's because the group that organized it, they were, coming out of AA or NA, or, had different connections to whatever that made them decide they wanted to come and So anyway, we walk into, it was like an elk lodge, and we walk in, and the place starts to fill up. And there was, nothing, there was some chips in the bag, some teeny juices, those little 50-cent things. But it's like, it just proved to me like over and over again that house music is so much more than music, right? Like you never know what people are walking onto that dance floor having just experienced, having just seen, what they're living through at the moment. And it's like to have a group of people come together and dance all night, not a drop of alcohol, no sort of, those things are, do what you gotta do, whatever. I'm not moralizing use of those things, but to walk into a place and dance for hours and put down everything that burdens you for that time period. I mean, I don't know, y'all. Like, is that nirvana or something? Like that's some sort of higher level, like consciousness or experience. And yeah, I just thought it spoke to what you just said, because it's just like, you don't know what people are going through.
Yeah.
And guess what? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter once you start moving to that beat, So anyway.
Yeah, because we're not together because we're perfect. We're here because we love each other. And that love comes in different forms. Sometimes it's a rough love, sometimes it's a love that's concerning. But I think that when you listen to house music, especially in the earlier days, when you hear I Shall Not Be Moved, or He Is My Friend, or if you hear something that Lala might have, Dave Lala's in the house, give him a hand, please. Dave Lala's in the house. I'm gonna tell you something. Sometimes you can lose your way musically. Sometimes you can lose your way musically. And Dave Lala is important to me because he's the one that kind of brings me on track. Those fellow DJs, I'll be like, and Naeem and I, we share this. Deuce and I, we share this. Sometimes we share music and we say, listen, you got this? No, I ain't never heard of that. And Lala's responsible for helping me put soul into my music. Because sometimes I play on different scenes and I have to compartmentalize this different scenes that I play for. I never like to play for one scene too long because I didn't want to be pigeonholed. I always loved to try different styles of house music. But Dave Lala was that reminder, like, yo, bro, yeah, you need some of this. So come on back home. Come on home. You live it out, you live out there now. Just come back home. But that's okay, because sometimes you need that reminder of the soul that you may or may not have. And it's really, for me, just being humble enough to say, hey, you know what? Maybe you're right. You know what? I might have felt this way. Sometimes the music can make you feel yourself more than you should. Because we know in the industry, sometimes ego comes to play. But things have a way of working around where it can bring you to say, well, you know what? You went through this because you need to humble yourself a little bit more. It's not about your DJ name. It's about what can you help this person with musically to make them feel like they love this music.
I love that. I love that. All right, Disciple, I think we got them warmed up. Can we take this panel to the B side a little bit? Can you talk to us about your relationship with hip hop and how it intersects with this book and this work and this house?
Okay. So as a gospel DJ, gospel drummer that loved playing music, I got introduced to gospel hip hop radio or hip hop on radio from Ralph Davis. He will always be a part of my story because he introduced me to radio. Prior to that, I knew about, hip hop artists that lived near me, like Dana Dane lived in Fort Greene, Just Ice was in the area, those early hip hop artists. But it became important to me that, and this book will showcase the artists that Ralph Davis was a part of, because he worked with Mike and Dave as security. So he would have, I was working as his intern, and he would have all of the old legends come by to do an interview, like Stetsasonic and Audio 2, all of the real old school hip hop artists. And one of the things that I started to notice was that, like, a lot of the great street culture came from the hip hop, and hip hop and house was kind of intertwined. And as Henry can kind of testify, one of the great DJs that never gets mentioned in this book. His name was Roman Ricardo. And Roman Ricardo DJ'd at the Palladium. He's the one that was able to bring Eric B. and Rakim, LL Cool J, and fuse it together with the house beats that he was playing. Because I never went to the Paradise Garage. I got my education from Roman Ricardo and Johnny Dynell. So that hip hop and house connection was kind of part of the story. But then not only that, there were also dancers that did not come from the house scene. Anybody here remember Kwame with the polka dots? Anybody here? that whole hip house, Jungle Brothers, Girl, I'll House You. A lot of hip hop heads came into house because of hip hop. And so that emergence is how we have a connection with Todd Terry, because Todd Terry was the person that said, can you feel it? Bang, 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 go bang. All of those records, those hard house records, those sample records is how I became to also love the New York early hip hop and early house music connection. Drawing those two together, where people from Farragut and Fort Greene to get together, the neighborhoods that I lived in. So the benefit of DJing with Ralph was, if somebody wanted me to play in Fort Greene, and I played on their system, and I played some, and I rocked the house. If I played some hip hop, they'd be like, the next block time when I come in that neighborhood, and I'm from Farragut, and they from Fort Greene, that person from Fort Greene, oh yeah, that's the DJ, right? Oh yeah, let him pass. Or anybody else, they couldn't pass by. They didn't get, so that gave me a rite of passage to, when you're a DJ, you could go and move where you want to move because people are touched by your music. Today, I'm moved by another way because I still play the drums in my church. And today I had to bury my prayer partner. I went to 2 funerals and an old friend named Gary. And there's a lot of people in the hip hop community that I had to play drums for in funeral services, that have been, taken out. And being a comfort to the family is also a ministry to let that person, when you see the video footage montage here, I also do that for the loved ones that have passed on in the church, so that their family knows how important that person was in the family. So dealing with crime that we've had in the area, it was important for me to do video montages of people that have passed on. But the connection for hip hop is strong with house music in the sense of how it's still utilized even to today. In the 90s, when I went to the UK, there was an MC culture that had arisen from the UK garage. And we see it in festivals in the Netherlands and so forth. But Henry also knows other things about the hip hop and house connection.
Well, yeah, I mean, just to provide another wrinkle, I mean, let's think about what started hip hop. We know the story of Kool Herc, making his mixes. What started house music? It was a similar tradition of mobile DJs experimenting with sound, taking recorded music, breaking it down, looping it together, bringing in some soon to be available devices, synthesizers, some drum machines. So, if you ask people today, what makes hip hop, what makes house, people will come up with all different kinds of answers. But it seems to me, looking back at the time when it was really coming out of the Bronx, Queens, Brooklyn, you listen to those records from the late 70s and 80s, they sound like they're the same genre to me. It's all coming from the same place, and it's coming from the basic same element of, let's take this recorded music and make it into something new so that the dancers can dance.
One thing I'll say is that I kind of felt early in the 90s that house music was a little bit in trouble. And I felt that way because I came and I played in Jersey, and somebody said, man, I want you to play Naughty by Nature, Hip Hop Hooray. And I felt, when I played that record, I said, uh-oh, this is the beginning of the end. This is whoa. And from that time on, people they follow me, they like the house music in that brighter day. But I was playing at certain spaces. They was like, man, like Jersey was still going strong with the music, the connections. You had Naeem, you had a lot of other DJs that were keeping the flame strong. But in Brooklyn, they was like, nah, we not ready to hear. 94, 95, yo, man, put on that Biggie, put on that Jay-Z, put on that Nas, put on that. Their taste buds had changed. And then it was like people in my neighborhood, they stopped that love affair with house music. And then the radio station stopped playing it. But what I found the inspiration was the producers like Deuce Martinez. He never gave up. He kept the fire going. Naeem Johnson never, when Tony Humphries left for England, Naeem Johnson was the one that kept it together. He kept it together. And this book honors him. It honors him because he's the one that exposed the Casio Ware, the Brothers of Peace. He's the one that exposed the Darryl D. Beno. He's the one that, and me and DJ Dub's in the house. Say hello, say what's up to DJ Dub. DJ Dub also played at Black Box. So these were clubs in New Jersey. But now I just want to switch to another lane right quick.
Yeah, please.
Here's another lane that comes from New Jersey. There was an artist that I had a mandate to break, and I wanted to feature him. And I felt his music was important. His name is Todd Edwards. Todd Edwards came, and he was on my first EP because I wanted to highlight his sound. And Todd Edwards is from Jersey. He's from New Jersey. It's me working with him in an outfit. Anybody ever heard of Smack Productions? Adiva? Michael Cameron? These also were powerful players in the New Jersey house scene that made you feel it in your soul, but they mixed their soulful vocals with the SP1200s. So the beats came out a little bit rougher, a little bit skippier. British DJs started picking up on Masters at Work dubs. Anybody know about Masters at Work? I want to say thank you to Louis Vega for writing the foreword. The Masters at Work, Jersey artists like Rosie Gaines. Anybody ever heard of Rosie Gaines? She made a record that you probably never heard of called Closer Than Close. But it's a huge record in the UK. It doesn't have the same relevance here. But over there, it is a strong hit maker. And a lot of times I think that we didn't really get a chance to really cultivate some of those artists. But over there was a big appreciation for who was behind Rosie Gaines? A.P. Terralis. Who was behind I Shall Not Be Moved by Kenny Bobian? Yep. That man right over there, Deuce Martinez. Did you even know that? That he was behind so many of the house music records that you love and you sung, but you never knew about. And we just had to take that chance to also, this is what the book brings. It brings about awareness of things that you never heard of before, from the beat, the scene, the sound. And it is so important in house music history. I'm one man's journey. There's a lot of other DJs that also have a story to tell. But this story, I tried to be as inclusive. Last but not least, I want to say that the connection, one of the things I loved about New Jersey and New York, that there was no division between us. The first person that taught me about the Loft records, the Paradise Garage records, the Jersey Sound is DJ Camacho. DJ Camacho is in this book. Him along with Nick Jones was a collective with the Wild Pitch parties that we would do. It was a gypsy party that moved from space to space. We would go to the town. Why is Camacho important? Because if there's no Camacho, there's no Follow Me. He's the one that helped break the record in New York. I broke it on the radio. Why is Camacho important? Those records that you hear, hot music, dance, those are Wild Pitch records. Bang, bang, the party, bang your mind was broken by choice DJs. Alternating initially at the choice where I played at, there was another DJ that never gets really recognized. His name is DJ Basil. And Basil Thomas, right now he's doing a lot of vocals on Track Source, but he is so important to house music. And I think sometimes as house music lovers, some people might have a recency bias, but we bring those DJs, those producers, those dancers, we bring them more to the forefront to let you see how important they were to house music history.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Uh,
I wasn't playing when I said that we could turn any row in this room into a panel. There are legends among us. I'm sorry, Henry.
Well, I'm just gonna,
Good
while
question.
we're talking about New Jersey and the UK, you know, one thing that was amazing to me about reporting this book was just how much legs and underground house music from New Jersey would have around the world. Disciple's booking agent in the UK, JP Furman, his first gig as in music was licensing Movin Records releases for distribution in the UK. And that's a story we've heard so many times. Record gets just a limited run here in the US, and then it goes on to sell thousands and thousands, maybe even reach the charts overseas. So, and that's something that, you know, should absolutely be celebrated. And that's, you know, New Jersey has just played such a huge role in the taste buds of so many house communities overseas.
Mhm.
There's something else I'd like to mention, that in house music, one of the things that we were able to achieve in this journey was what we see today as vlogging. I was writing for Street Sound magazine, and they got bought out by a company named pseudo.com. And pseudo.com was an internet space where we actually were the first company to put house music on the internet back in 1997, 98. And I would go travel to Singapore, Hong Kong, Malaysia, Canada, recording house music during that time, as well as in 2008 doing a documentary on where house music had its rebirth. She spoke about an ecosystem. And when I think of ecosystem, I think about Ian Friday and Libation. I think about Ain't Nothing But a House Body with Jelly Bean Benitez. And I think about the things that DJ Pookie has done, DJ Jahab Muhammad, his contribution, DJ Beloved, who is also in this book, the festivals that have caused those ecosystems where DJs and people that dance to the music can dance to it without a restriction of how old you are. It doesn't matter, because we see house music as a healing process that it is.
So one, we just want to make sure we acknowledge the folks who snuck in the back. Welcome, 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 welcome to the Beat, the Scene, the Sound book launch with DJ Disciple and Henry Kronk. Would love to hear you talk about radio play, because you kind of threw it in there and then walked away from it around, you said something like the radio didn't play it anymore, and then you moved on. So can you talk about radio play? And then I would love to open it up to just hear like your questions and comments and get some feedback in the room, right? I think that'd be great.
So it's really hard to get on the radio. You can get the mixes, like John Robinson did mixes, Marley Marl did mixes on the radio. We could get a lunchtime mix, but to get it playlisted, a lot of times you had to have the record on the bigger labels, the Warner Brothers, the Sonys, the Epic. And so because those artists started getting dropped by those labels, it kind of hurt the artist development of the artist, like on a Virgin Records. So what winds up happening is that we could say Naeem also helped build an ecosystem with other DJs, wherein we built our own anthems. And even though they wasn't as big on the radio, we think about the institutions that from that time in New Jersey, and I want to say one name that when you hear this name, he's a person, and this is a club that a generation of clubbers kept house music going from the early 90s until now. His name is Timmy Regisford, and that party is the Showtime.
Come on now.
So we didn't need the radio because the ecosystem that was built from that came the Herb Martins, came the Kim Lightfoots, came X amount of DJs that were playing in these underground scenes to create our own anthems. And who helped facilitate those anthems? I would say Josh Milan. I would say Kevin Hedge. I would say other fellow Jersey artists that made its name. I could say a lot of other names, but it's so important that we built our ecosystem. Now, we see that EDM has helped propel the popularity of house music when you hear your Flow Riders, your Rihannas, the David Guetta, Calvin Harris. All of that is all mentioned in the book. But it was important to document these ecosystems that existed that I've been able to do. When we talk about Soul Summit and Fort Greene with Sadiq, Taboo, when we talk about all the New York and New Jersey parties with Omar Abdullah, all of that, we think about the Coffee Cave. Those are our own ecosystems where we create our own anthems. And even though they might not be all over New Jersey, we can find peace that we find a piece of this music with us.
That's dope. I think we're gonna open, thank you so much, Disciple. I think we're gonna open up for questions. What's on your mind? What's on your heart?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. It's great to be here. I just throw myself out there. I'm currently studying musicology and I'm starting with the history of genres. And one of the things that you said the most that stuck me is the importance of archiving when you know that a movement is happening. So my question to you is, what are your thoughts on what's currently happening with Jersey club music? Because Jersey club music was around when I came up. So I was watching it grow and bud and seeing that we're transitioning now because that is the direct child of house music for the younger generation. So what are your thoughts on how Jersey club music has taken off?
One of the things that it's done is it's resurrected the mobile DJ movement in the sense of people are having more festivals now. And the festival movement is helping to help DJs facilitate and break music. Today, we got about 3 festivals going on. Back in the days, we had a New Jersey coalition. Big shout out again to Abigail Adams, who also facilitated a coalition where promoters got together so they wouldn't clash with one another. But I think that Jersey has been made to do with hotels, with kitchenettes. They don't care. It don't have to be no club for them. You can have it in the basement. They heard such and such song, Hard to Love, the dub version at such and such space because it's like the movie Thor where you say like, you know, Asgard could be anywhere. Well, house music could be anywhere. And we build our collective DJs with the people that love it and the crowds that love it. And when we could get a vendor's license, we put those DJs together. And that's kind of where we are right now. Can things be better? Is there room for growth? There's always room for growth. Can things get better? Yes. But the fact of the matter, as long as there are DJs, dancers, singers committed to this music and still playing this music, the music will never die. The music will still live on and the music will still be strong in the culture of where the platforms can build from and grow.
Yeah, and I'll jump in and, you know, as somebody who is doing a lot of fact checking for this book, I feel your question very strongly, you know, and one thing I'll say is that a lot of the material that we were able to find and verify, it didn't come from a library archive. It didn't come from some kind of established record keeping institution. It came from fans who had uploaded bootleg recordings to YouTube, you know? And is that an ideal system? Absolutely not. You know, it would 100% be much better to put more energy into cataloging this in a way that people can access and refer to back in the future. So I don't know, I can't speak to the current state of archiving and cataloging, but more I think is always better.
Questions?
Hey, thank you so much, DJ Disciple. I just want to say really quickly that RIP to Marjorie and Buddha Ray and all those who transitioned. Here in Newark, we have helped to really carry the legend of house music. And I just want to ask you really quickly, and I'll make a couple of comments. The Chicago question in regards to the origins and the foundation of house music came out in Chicago, New York, and I always felt like, you know, it was from Studio 54 to the garage to the shelter. I always wondered which Chicago fits in. But almost everything that you said, you covered like so much in regards to the hip house, in regards to the Ifa Yoruba movement, that mixture. You covered so much stuff. The one thing I wanted to say lastly is I had a back and forth with a friend of mine from New York and about this whole house music dance thing. Now, the Jersey crowd was kind of like Wyclef, Hakeem Green, myself, in regards to our influence on the dance culture. We know that Khalif and Ejo and all these other brothers and sisters back then were the foundation
He's
too.
okay.
What do you feel in regards to specifically Newark and Newark's foundation for house music, as well as the question around Chicago and how Chicago is influences in New York and Chicago? Who's really the first to really start?
So the book lays out. The book lays out. Here's what the book is saying. The book is saying, like, consequently, Frankie Knuckles went to Chicago to play at the Warehouse, but he got his lessons along with Larry Levan from Nicky Ciano at the Gallery. And from that point, Frankie Knuckles went to Chicago's, and Import Records started utilizing the phrase house music. When Timmy registered in Boy Jarvis, and we think about that 1983 record with Anthony Malloy, On and On. Pete Simpson also always says that house music started from that point. We didn't call it house music, we called it club music, right? But it still had the same feeling, it still had the same vibes. It just wasn't that title. Much like you have a loft sound, a Paradise Garage sound, which the UK would call it the garage sound, and you have a Jersey sound, right? And so in regards to, you want to learn what its importance, or you want to find its origin? Which one are you asking? I can't hear you. You need the mic.
I think you covered so much even in your dialogue. I said more or less the origin, the foundation and the origin.
Right. So when we're dealing with origins of how the maturations, we're thinking about Hippie Terralis and how he started Docs, because Docs is an important part of the club disco ethos. From the Docs, you have Zanzibar, where Hippie was also, and this is all in the beat, the scene, the sound. We don't leave anything unturned. But Hippie Terralis was a major component before Tony came, and then you have Larry Patterson and T. Scott, also who played a prominent role in club music. But as far as the musical innovations, we owe a lot of the musical innovations to Boy Jarvis. We owe a lot of the musical innovations to other Jersey artists that played a role. Like when you hear Serious Intention, you don't know, right? Or when you hear a Colonel Abrams record, we wasn't calling that house music, but didn't it feel a little bit like house, Colonel Abrams? Didn't it feel a little bit like that? Okay, so so we didn't term it at that time, because at that time, you know, Frankie Knuckles was, and this is all in the book. This is kind of really broken down to a certain degree in this book that you'll get today. I hope I've answered your question.
Yeah. Well, one thing I'll also say, you know, interviewing folks for this book, researching, et cetera, a lot of people were interested in saying, okay, this is the first time this happened. This is the first time this genre emerged. This is the first time X, Y, or Z. I think that even if, forget the genre, let's break it down to mixing techniques. You can identify a few different people who independently on their own came up with a system for beat matching. You can independently verify a few different people who around the same time came up with cut and paste tape recording looping.
Or reel to reels.
Or reel to reels. So to me, I don't know this, because we came across so many people who wanted to say, okay, who wanted to locate the origin of house outside of Chicago, who wanted to put it in New Jersey, who wanted to put it in New York, X, Y, or Z. To me, that's kind of missing the point, you know? It should be, what's incredible to me is that this emerged collectively in all these different places. You know, we haven't even talked about the Belleville 3 outside of Detroit, you know, coming up with techno.
Right.
I mean, the fact that this all emerged organically and coalesced and mixed with each other and you know, it just went forward is the real takeaway from me, not who got there first.
And when we think about like garage music, we think about Billy, Nobody's Business, record, you know, things, Vicky Ryan, you know what I'm saying? We could go on and on about the garage sound and how that post-disco sound, and I think people forget, like, a lot of people tend to forget that the loft and the garage, the loft came before disco, survived and went strong after disco. The garage was around the same time as disco, went past disco, helped got garage sound to become influential around the world. The Tony Humphries Jersey sound became instrumental and was nobody's B-side. Nobody looked at Jersey one way and New York on another. It was all on the even playing field. There was no one better than the other. It was all the same influences, emergence, and talents to be discovered for people that love dance music.
Thank you so much. I think there's one question. Do we have time? No. The sister up front.
We have time.
Who was waiting? Yeah. And then we could turn it back to Dale and Reggie. Right here. The sister right here.
We can get that brother too.
How y'all doing? My question is short and simple. Right now, this day and age, what are your top 3 DJs?
Oh, all right. So we doing this today, huh? Now, don't get me in trouble.
Okay, you asking me or you asking Henry or you asking her?
You taking it. I'm not taking that.
Okay. Okay. So I'm gonna name one top DJ that was influential to me. 3 instrumental DJ. Okay. I want to say my favorite DJs that I loved hearing. And when I heard them, they made me fall in love with house music. Johnny Dynell. And Johnny Dynell, because he was more popular in the LGBT community, and he knew how to play Let's Go in the mix. All that Chicago house, it's in the book. I would run and ask, where can I get these kind of records? I would say in my early stages, it was definitely Johnny Dynell. There's one person I had to constantly learn from that never gets mentioned in house music history, but he's in this book and he's from New Jersey and nobody talks about him. And it's a shame that nobody does. His name is Nick Jones.
You're amazing.
Nick Jones is the man that played, he lives in Jersey, but when he did any wild pitch party, any party that you wanted to know about from Zanzibar, from Paradise Garage, when he played at the wild pitch party, 7, 8, 9, I got in trouble in church many times, having to learn and listen and sit down, be humble, sit down, and take studies. There's some classes I ain't never gonna get in my life. Never, ever again. No. Nick Jones was that guy. He was that dude. There's one other DJ that was influential to me. And I met him the first time I played at Garage City. His name was Paul Trouble Anderson. Now, you don't know who Paul Trouble Anderson is. But Paul Trouble Anderson created his own party called The Loft, which is in this book, which also helped. Some of the songs that he did helped facilitate the UK garage sound. And you hear the name UK garage a lot lately because now there's a new generation of young DJs that is into this brand. That brand comes from here, and people need to be educated on these kind of other movements. We didn't talk about the bottle service and the EDM, just the UK garage. I was fortunate enough to play at the David Mancuso space, which was the Loft, because of my church mate, Richard Vasquez. And I was alternating with Larry Levan before alternating with Basil. But Paul Trouble Anderson was the guy that really influenced me in the Loft that he had. So I played in the Loft in New York, but I also played in the Loft in London. And playing for the book, we call them the Boogie Boys in the UK. Different kind of dancers, different kind of moves. If you saw how they dance, and some of it mirrors the way we dance. What we did with dancing, with Ejo, with Khalid, with Taboo, with Marjorie Smart, who's also in this book, was we took our dancing and we was able to monetize it and bring power to those influences in hip hop videos or whatever. But when we hear the record AEIOU, which was a freestyle record by C-Bank, Paul Trouble Anderson was dancing in that video. And his emergence, along with Bobby and Steve, helped keep house music alive for soulful house music lovers around the world. And I can go more about that, but I know we limited the time.
You got books to sell and sign.
Yeah.
Yes, folks, if you have, and of course with our guest blessing, we have a little extra time beyond 4 since we started a little later. So I have a few people queued up. If you have any questions, if that's fine with y'all. And actually, Dale.
Thank you. Just rest assured that this is being archived, and Sister Wakefield has graciously, we're in talks with her about archiving everything that she is doing for her documentary. So there is going to be a record of house music, club music, hip hop, of all of that as it relates to New Jersey. Now, Disciple, you mentioned Nicky Siano, but I remember Nicky Siano from the Buttermilk Bottom. That's a long time ago.
Right.
I'd like to hear your thoughts about equipment and turntables and how it went from vinyl to DAT to CD to reel, and maybe even back to vinyl. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. When I came into the house music scene, DJs were already doing reel to reel, right? They were always, but during this maturation, Todd Terry was one of the first people to really bring upon having things on DAT machines. I am a person that cries when I hear the word DAT machine, because you can record these amazing vocals in the studio and you'll spend 3, 4, 5 hours and you put it in the DAT machine, and if the tape machine is not working, it eats the tape. Let me get up on it right now. Just thinking about that. But no, seriously. So
Disciple speaking from personal experience there, I think.
yeah, so that's the DAT machine. But Camacho and I came up with the whole DAT, playing on the pitch control, unreleased music. And then from that format, carrying all those records around, in 1998, we decided to go, I decided to do the Pioneer CDJ 100s. Roger Sanchez had given me a copy. And so we started doing CDJs, and as obviously Pioneer matured in its usage of the models that they were bringing out. And then we wound up getting laptop DJs. Now, in the book, I'm known for as the person that DJs that you don't even know the music, it's on promos, it's not released. But what changed the game in the 2000s, 2010s? Shazam.
Oh, yeah, because now we know.
So, because now I could just play, you could play a great set. You could spend hours, 6 hours finding that perfect song. And all I have to do is just hold up the phone and Shazam it. And you be like, gotcha. That's kind of what happened with technology.
Can you talk about speakers though?
Okay.
Because that's another element of technology. Speakers change the game for house.
It did.
So-
Right. So obviously David Mancuso started utilizing the clip short speakers. And when it comes to certain Vegas, when it comes to, I think what the book lays down, it outlays doing a maturation of different speakers, wirings, connections that is utilized for different sounds, the mobile sound systems. From the start of the book, from Grandmaster Flowers, all the way up to what DJ Devonair was doing in my Hunter College stage, and then working in festivals. You can work with small speakers, but still have the biggest impact. And System 1, Function 1 sound systems also played a part in the Giuliani era of house music, where we look at certain individuals that set up sound systems. There's one person that I know that does sound systems really well. Once again, I keep calling his name, and that's Deuce Martinez. Deuce, come here for a second, brother. Come here for a second.
Come on up.
Come here. Sometimes you gotta be
I
like,
love it.
yo, son, what you talking about? You talking about sound? He was supposed to be playing with us today, but today we want to see. I'm gonna give him a good example. Tell us what you was gonna use for the sound system.
Well, it's the hottest system to me that I feel it's one of the best is Yorkville's. They take a beating, so the more you hit it hard, the more you're gonna get good quality sound. You're gonna get that thump out of it. That's just my preference. You know what I
What
mean?
kind of sound system did they use at Zanzibar in 280?
Oh my God, you answer that.
No,
Richard Long, right?
right?
Richard Long system.
That's
Richard Long system.
Give it up for Richard Long, everybody, because
Richard Long.
we didn't have the garage sound system, the Empire, the Zanzibar. Richard Long and Alex Rosner.
Alex Rosner,
Right.
which we will have him here
That's right.
July 14th as well with Hippie Tavalez.
Yes.
He mentioned as well on July 14th. And also the man who created the 12-inch was his
Tom
name?
Moulton.
Tom Moulton. So give it up. First of all, give it up to DJ Disciple. This is not something easy to do in putting everybody together and writing about a lot of us in this book. So I just want to give you a big shout out. Thank you for acknowledging a lot of us in this book. And yo, I remember you from the college days. You and that man over there. DJ Doug, man. So thank you so much, brother.
There's different levels when it comes to, listen, when it comes to wireless systems, like certain DJs are great at certain things, but when it comes to sound systems, I'm gonna sit down and learn guy to guy again. There's nothing wrong with humbling yourself and say, yeah, this ain't my lane. Could be, yeah, there's a basic sound system, but there are levels to sound system wiring. Is any more questions? Yes.
Hello. Hey, how you doing? My name is Vio Pancho. I just want to thank you for coming out to Newark and when you book you and Hendry for capturing this fine moment in time. Growing up listening to house music, from Paterson, New Jersey. I used to go to these parties once a month. It's called One Step Beyond, and DJ Sane used to be there. DJ Cut. A lot of DJs used to listen to you, listen to your playlist or your set list on your radio show and duplicate that for that night. So there was always a house party in Paterson every month. So a lot of people owe you money in Paterson. I'm just letting you know.
All right.
People, and you're my top favorite DJ. I've been dying to meet you, and I was about to go to Brooklyn to track you down just to shake your hand. But I'm sorry, I'm not used to public speaking. But I have one little comment. When I used to be dancing and growing up, I was a little awkward. I was chubby, then I got tall, and I was goofy. I was always, the music has always, brought me into a social environment. I was like 180, 170 at the time. So at the present moment, I'm a little overweight. So I just need to know when you come back to Newark so I can shed some pounds.
I never social distanced from the refrigerator during COVID, and I never recovered. Well, no, I believe in clean, healthy living. I'm working on it. I'm really am. Guts not saying so, but I got to get to that. But I love playing in New Jersey. The last time I played in New Jersey was at Coffee Cave, a venue that I also love very, very much. Right now I DJ in the restaurant industry because I'm a girl dad. I decided in 2013 to stop touring. I was doing midweek gigs called Feel Real with a fantastic promoter named Becky Nunez. I was doing that event and putting on new DJs. I was hiring like 27 DJs a month doing events. But I stopped playing in clubs after COVID because my daughter's now 11. And priorities change in life. And one of the ways I wanted to reinvent myself if I wasn't DJing in the nightclubs was get in another place where I can DJ, which is, I think I'm the first DJ in New York to DJ at a bakery. And it is pain and pleasure because it is diabetic heaven, but it's good money, good income. And I love doing it because, I'm just playing. Now, just playing in nightclubs in general. In New York, I haven't done it only because my focus has been promoting house music, books, to let people know about our culture because everybody's looking for that gratification of going higher in their DJ career. And I'm saying to myself, well, while I'm being a girl dad and while I'm being the best father I can be for my daughter, let me see if I can reinvent myself by giving the people that I feel that are important to me their flowers. Some of us are not going to be here in the next. I just did a funeral for someone today. He's in the book. His name is Alan Tucker. He was my prayer partner. He's gone. He's never going to be able to read the book. And there are other people in this book that are not here. And I couldn't have done that without this man here, Henry Kronk. He is the man that helped make it happen for me. But I'm going to come back and play in New Jersey. It's just that I think that there's a time in a season. And in this season, I'm enjoying the New Jersey DJs that we have right now. And I'm appreciative of all the women that have come, the Chandra Trents, the new female, the women DJs that have come, that have contributed to our scene. And they are making the valuable process to show that, listen, we're going to come at it from another angle. The Risa Garcias, the DJ Remarkables. Yeah. We don't want to stop. So I will be back in New Jersey. I just need to raise my daughter the best way I can right now. And there's a time and a place. And that time and that place is to be with my little girl to make sure she's the best woman that she can be.
All right. With my guest blessings, I think we've got 2 questions, maybe time for 2 more questions in the back. I do see a third hand, so 2 or 3. Just a quick question here.
Hey, peace. What's up, disciple? Cortez here. I remember when you used to do lights. I used to do lights at Club 280.
Right.
And you were my introduction to the possibilities with DJ culture, and I thank you. Since we got a movie director on the stage and the fact that you just wrote a book, what are your thoughts of a movie? Not a documentary, a movie, something either fiction or maybe even telling your story on film.
Well, the thing about it is Henry had said, hey, I wanna see if we can inevitably make a movie out of this, right? So that may be on the table. The other thought I was thinking about was, it is a possibility to facilitate that. My mindset was more on, how can I get house music in schools where people can learn about music culture from the social aspect, and bringing light to teaching young kids that want to know about our music, and how do we draw them into house music other than talking about it in schools, making sure that our kids know that this music is positive music. This is family free. You could be at a picnic playing house music. You could play it anywhere. The power medium for me, for Henry, I want him to speak about how he might want to document it in movies. For me, I want to teach it in schools so that the next generation knows about house music. But Henry?
Thank you, Disciple. And first of all, Jamara's got a documentary coming out soon. Really excited to check that out. A lot of folks that we spoke to last night were worried, you know, how's this culture, how is this music gonna keep going into future generations? You know, the way you preserve a culture is by getting people to speak the language. This is one step in that, and I very much think that going beyond just documentary, going into creative work is very much the next step. So if you know any good script writers, feel free to come talk to me after. And there are conversations that are happening for sure.
The other thing too, when you're talking about movies, I mean, one of the things that people may not understand about me is that I've been documenting house music since 1989. I've been writing for Street Sound, so I was able to feature a lot of artists and songs since that time. And also since that time, documented and interviewed a lot of DJs' stories while I was on WNYA 91.5. Documenting DJ stories on the internet for the Next Level Party and that generation of DJs. So I've always been documenting and interviewing DJs from the past and till today. It's important. Now, whether a movie comes out of it, I'm more looking at it like, I want the kids to know this movement. I want our kids to know how great house music is.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
So I just have more of a comment. This is a full circle moment for me because I was a student. I was about 17, 18 at Union County College, happened to walk past the weight room. This guy, Marvin, was playing house music. And I circled back and said, what is that? He said, that's house music. I said, house music? I like that. He said, well, if you like that, then you need to check this guy out named DJ Disciple. He has a party called 280. My best friend and I went to 280 that Friday. I think it was a Friday, right? We went and the rest was history. So now it's, I'm not going to tell you how many years later, but so many years later, and you know, I'm just fully immersed in house music, you know, with the legendary Donna Edwards. She's my resident DJ for Love House. We've been doing this party for 13 years, along with another legend right here, John Crockett. So, you know, it's just, house music is really an amazing thing. I started a party because my mother said, you go out so much, why don't you start your own party? I said, okay. So I always, you know, I'm just so proud of you. I knew I could count on, you know, hearing Electribe 101 or Ultra Nate, you know, and it was just a different vibe. And I really felt your vibe. And there were a lot of different places that we could have gone to. And the one thing that I could say about Jersey is we choose our vibes. And you are definitely a vibe. And we appreciate you.
All right. And we have our final question, a comment.
So basically, like house, I'm a little nervous. Basically, like house music is like the soundtrack of my youth. I was too young to go to Zanzibar. I grew up in Newark. I was too young to go to Zanzibar, but my friends and I would buy house music tapes on the corner of Broad and Market. And down in the Ironbound, there was a place called Falcons that would have parties for high school kids. but most of the kids dancing, there was Latinos, there was some Black, there, it was a mix, but mostly all the kids dancing to house music were Portuguese. And I grew up, and some of them became DJs. We would party. It was the best. And then you mentioned how house music is like, you feel like it's like family. So at some point, I started going out to clubs. I went to like there was Mars, Red Zone, Palladium, and I would lose myself with the house music. It was like there was nothing around, just the music, the bass, and that feeling that you would feel the bass in your heart and in your body. So when techno came along, it just wasn't the same for me. And a lot of my friends would still want to go to techno clubs. And sometimes I would just go out by myself. I would take the PATH train at North Penn Station, and I would go to the shelter parties by myself. And I would dance in the middle of a sea of people, and I didn't feel alone. And I would meet people, and I can't remember their names. I can't remember. I just remember feeling like I was like with family, even though I didn't know them, because we all were together under the same music. And that just is like, music is like a time machine, and I think music saves lives. So I just want to say thank you, because I love house music.
Well, I just want to say real quickly, like, the reason why this book was written, not just because there's so many stories that are told that you never heard before. Again, I just want to say that when we write about the achievements and the bios and the backgrounds of people that have been in my journey, I'm doing that to honor those that are either no longer here or that are still contributing, because they are somebody. They mean something. They are something. They are important to us, to our community, and to the world. House music is an American musical institution made primarily by a variety of people that never really get their flowers for. And I want today to make sure that in my journey, that I give my flowers to the people that I know made house music lovable for everybody here. I appreciate all of you. God bless you.
And we appreciate you. Thank you so much for just everything, the music, this book, paying homage. I mean, a legend, recognizing legends. So just please, one more time, give it up for all three of our guests who blessed us here today. Thank you. And if you are interested, and also just a shout out to the great source of knowledge who provided some of the books here. So in the back, the best bookstore in the world. And just follow us. You can follow us on JBAR online for any upcoming events. So JBAAR_MPL, Twitter, Instagram. Brother Deuce mentioned earlier that we have a program next month, July 14th, with more legends, legend after legend. So Tom Moulton, Alex Rosner, Ray Caviano. Should be an after party with Hippie Torellas, Deuce, and Martin G. So we've got some flyers. My colleague Dale is giving out. So I'm just going off the cuff here. Yeah, I just want to thank you all as well for coming out today. We truly appreciate y'all showing up and supporting. Damani, I said my colleagues Austin, Alicia. Thank you all again. Grab some books and travel safe.
Yes.
Yeah.
You all did good.
Man.